sometimes we feel like we're being critical or we feel like we're being difficult, but actually we're advocating for ourselves, and a lot of times there are added benefits to the other side where they say, "Oh, I've never thought about that before. I can modify that. I can add that." And it's not like you're doing it because we can't control whether or not they find it valuable, but we can fend for ourselves, and sometimes that is the side effect, which makes it easier to do it again, as long as we're being respectful. So I think that dynamic can often play out with clients too, and we touched on this a bit when we did the rejection handling event, where they might hate what you've done. Like that is a real possibility. And so what are you going to do in that situation? Like, are you going to get defensive about it? Because if you do, you'll probably never work with them again. And maybe that's a good thing if you don't want to work with them again. Or maybe it's a case of like, I'm going to own up to my mistakes. I'm going to fix it. I'm going to discount them. I'm going to put it right because this relationship is important to me. And so we can't die on every hill. We do have to be particular about what matters more, this ongoing client relationship or me being right about this one deliverable that they don't like. Because sometimes unfair things happen in life, and we still have to move forward.
The negative thoughts and feelings that come up when there is a disagreement, it's very clarifying when, someone is in a different place, they have different thoughts than you, a different view on how things should go. I think it's important to take that as like really helpful feedback that like, okay, I don't have to keep pushing to make it work, whether that's either to force the other person to agree or ourselves, with people pleasing and changing kind of like what we think or our actions in order to satisfy the other person. And so it's okay to it's okay to say no to another person. It's also okay to be told no by another person. And what we do with that information is, how much weight do we put in that? Especially if it's someone who like we just met, or it's like a very brief interaction in a work setting, a prospective client. We sort of have to like consciously choose not to believe that something bad is going to happen as a result of that. Sometimes the fear or the avoidance of a bad outcome really prevents us from doing the right thing, communicating what we really think without hurting anybody, of course. But there's a kind of satisfaction that's deeper when we went through a situation and we stayed with it rather than trying to avoid it by trying to like, I don't know, control the situation with people pleasing or just like not speaking and not sharing our thoughts. So it is harder, it is more challenging, but it is also more rewarding when sometimes you need to respond with that kind of thing. Disagreement is negative on the surface, but people may sometimes actually respect us more at the end of all of that
Yeah.
because we took those steps.
We all have like the more assertive version of ourselves, and that's who we need to be in that moment to get the outcome that we want. And that's not a bad thing. And I know as a woman in business, I've often felt that discrepancy around, are women allowed to really speak up? Are we allowed to say what we want, what we don't want? Are we going to be frowned upon for that? Are we going to be rejected? But at the end of the day, that's what we have to do. So again, it's like, do I want to die on this hill? Is it worth it for me? Is it not worth it for me? You can't do that for everything. We ultimately can carry ourselves through, even if it gets hairy at times, and and we're more likely to come out with a positive outcome if we go in knowing what we want and not being afraid to assert ourselves, and even like being prepared for it to be a bit of a bumpy ride, but knowing we'll come out the other side. It's not gonna be forever.
Yeah, so I think the last thing that I would say kind of on this, but also hopefully as an encouragement to all of you, is that when these situations happen, especially now that we are adults, if we have a tough interaction with somebody and once it's over, we can feel confident that this person is not going to be around in our life in the long term. In the same way that our parents were, other family members or our teacher or our manager or boss at work. Now, because we're independent, everyone can go their separate ways when they want to, when it feels right to, and you should also sort of give yourself permission to move on in that way. That is one of the ways of learning how to recover or repair from a tough situation or something that we feel like was a mistake or a failure, is that we have to always remember that moving on is possible. And also this person is not gonna come back to, continue, harassing us or something like that. But even if that does happen, there are ways of dealing with that, whether that's like legally and those kinds of things. And so we have to give ourselves those options. Even though it doesn't feel good to do, we have to expand the range of options that is available
Yeah.
to us with
Yeah.
communication. And yeah, I'm thinking about, Sophie, how you've shared at different times that like how you have gone your separate ways with different people who you have worked with, who, you had hoped that things would go well, but something came up. But it's okay because there's mutual respect between everybody that,
Yeah.
even if we disagreed about some other thing, what we do agree on is that it's better for us to all move on from
Yeah.
this and focus on other things starting now.
Yeah, and also sometimes things can have a timeline. They can work for a certain phase of your life or phase of your business, and then they don't work for the next phase. In the early stages, you might be more open to taking on things that aren't a perfect fit, or, oh, I'm not quite sure about this person, but I'm going to give them a chance because I'm available and I'll learn from the experience. And over time, you're going to get better at identifying upfront, oh, is this an opportunity that is aligned for me? And that's why I like to stick around to kind of talk about those opportunities. And if I can see that this is very clearly not aligned or is aligned based on everything that I know about you and what we've been planning for, then I can kind of advise. But at the end of the day, if you want to take a risk and try something, the worst that can happen is you'll learn from it and you'll know not to do that again. And so working with a client doesn't mean that you're obligated to work with them forever. And the other way around too, we can't get complacent with, oh, we've got a number of clients right now, so we never have to market ourselves again, and we never have to put ourselves out there because they can decide at any time, actually, I'm gonna do it internally or I'm gonna hire somebody else. So to take full responsibility for ourselves is to find that balance between the optimal dynamics and the monetary side of it and the visibility side of it, and that's what we're aiming to create is our own little ecosystem for our businesses that overlap with everybody else's because we can make referrals, we can support one another, but ultimately it's yours.